Welcome back to Real Conversations with Nora for our 21st episode. And our topic of discussion this week is raising a young Black male in a system that seems to be against him. Joining me today is my girlfriend from Detroit, Michigan, Crisette Ellis, First Lady of Greater Grace Temple, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. We look good. You look good.
Thank you.
Today, I'm so excited that you're here with us today on Real Conversations with Nora.
I'm excited to be here with you, Nora. This is going to be exciting. And thank you so much for the invitation.
Of course, you're my girlfriend. So listen, share with us your views on raising a young Black male in a system that seems to be against him in this day and time.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you this. You know, when my son was born, I can honestly say I never really thought about, the fact that he would experience racism. I never really thought about, what would happen to him if he would get stopped by the police and they would view him a certain way. Because, my son in May celebrated his 28th birthday. And I would honestly say that, when he was a young child, that while I knew, racism still existed and, there was bigotry and whatnot, we were kind of in our community, not being very connected within our community. It never really dawned on me, that I need to have a conversation with him when he was younger growing up. And the sad thing is now that he's older, and he is 28, I feel the need to, have the conversation with him about how, he is viewed in society now. And that was never instilled when he was a child, just because I guess I just, believed that he was going to be okay.
I can't believe he's 28 years old. So Buddy was like, how old was he? He was like 2 when we met, right?
Yeah, he was, Buddy was probably right around, no, actually he was younger than that, because he would have been 10 and a half months old when I met you. Yeah, I would say when you started coming to the house and being all up in our household. Yeah, he was probably 2, 3 years old. Absolutely.
We didn't ask you for all the extras, okay, lovey? So listen, how do you feel as a mother about how the world views your son, especially, and let's talk about this day and time. I mean, it's probably always been that way, but just like you said, it was never a thought to have that conversation with him now, based on all that's going on in the world today with our young Black males.
Well, you know what? It's really, really sad, because when I think about, all of the stereotypes that are out there, and they are so perpetuated through the media, through social media, through
the White House,
movies. And I'm going to tell you something, I really now have a harder time watching things and even going to movies that portray our Black men in a certain light. And, sometimes, it's the majority of the time it's other producers that are not Black. But then there are times when even our people, that produce film that portray, Black men, or portray Black men in a certain light. And I know, some of it is comedy, and I mean, we definitely want to continue to laugh, but I think because for a lot of white America, how they know us is through what they see on television and in movies. And so while we know that it's not true, if that's all that they see, that's what they believe, because I dare say that many white people and many Black people don't have a lot of relationships outside of their own race or outside of their own culture. So because of that, you tend to believe what other people perpetrate. And so that right there, I think, really makes it more challenging, especially for, our young men, when they're out and about. You just don't know how they're being perceived,
Mm-hmm.
by, by white people,
Mm-hmm.
because they're Black.
Right, right, and that's so true too. I know for myself, we grew up in a environment where the African American community, or just the people, African American people in Massachusetts, I want to probably say it was about 14%. So we tended to gravitate towards what we knew. And because it was an area that at that time, I mean, things have changed, but there was a lot of racism, racism. And we know that racism is nothing but a fear of the unknown, uh,
Mhm.
according to racial barriers. So absolutely, I agree with you 100%. So as the First Lady of Greater Grace, wife, mother, and mother of many in the church family, how did you make sure you were making time for your son and to make sure that you were directing him in the right pathway, as a believer in Jesus Christ, and like I said, the First Lady of Greater Grace, and you wear many hats, many hats, and oftentimes people get caught up in not being able to do the things necessarily that they need to do with their children or their sons. But in this case, I find that you have, just because I know you and we've been friends for so long, I've watched you, and it's just amazing to me how you're able to do that. So just talk about that a little bit, because that is a real issue for people who are really busy,
Mhm.
or in maybe a different situation, but still find themselves really busy, and their children, the boys, don't get to actually have that connection.
Right, right. Well, the thing that I believe is so important, and I've always stood on, before I am a first lady of anything, I am a mother and I'm a wife. I'm a wife and I'm a mother. So those are two things that the Bible explicitly talks about. Okay. And so, I've always had that attitude. And when my children were younger, when Buddy was younger, I wasn't the pastor's wife, in the early part of his years. Let's see, my Chuck became the pastor in 1996. And so Buddy was born in 92. So yeah, he was 4 years old when when my husband became the pastor. And so, up until then, I made sure that, he did the things that little boys did, making sure, he went to school and so on and so forth, and making sure that, when at all possible, he was involved in, activities. And Buddy was always very, very smart. So I wanted to make sure that, he was able to thrive and to be involved in things that was going to expose him to higher learning. And, one of the things that I know as a parent that's so important is not what's taught, but it's what's caught. And sometimes we think we just tell them to do this, tell them to do that. And that's fine, because you do want to tell your children the right things to do. But it's more importantly that they see you. They will mirror what they see you do. And I think that, Buddy has always seen me as an entrepreneur, right? So he's seen me build a business, but being able to have a home-based business allowed me to be at home. And so my kids only know when they went to school and came home, guess what? Who was home? My mom was at home. Right. But there were times I said, hey, I got to work my business. Don't knock on my door until the little hand is on this number and the big hand is on that number. And it's amazing to me, because now that he's an adult, having gotten his master's degree in finances and, working and, now, he's purchasing properties and flipping properties, and he has his own entrepreneurial spirit. I think, wow, those many years that he watched me build a business, he's building his business. So I think that as parents, we just want to make sure that we are mirroring to our children the right behaviors, that we're having, the right conversations. And I'm gonna tell you, Buddy grew up in an atmosphere of you can do anything. He was affirmed. I don't think there were, times, and I'll say many times, because nobody's perfect, where, he wasn't affirmed. So one thing, and you know him very well, Nora,
Right.
he does not lack confidence. And
Right.
that is
That's true.
very important. And, my prayer has always been for my children that they would be able to, be self-sufficient.
Mhm.
Okay, and that they would be able to operate in our world, in our society,
Mhm.
knowing that they could be and do whatever it is, that they wanted to do and
Mhm.
become.
Mhm. And he's very sociable, so that has a lot to do with it. So what are some of the conversations you have had with Buddy about racism?
Wow, that's a good question. I would say probably we've talked a little bit more about it now. Probably, I know we had some conversations when he was going into junior high school and high school,
Mhm.
because when we moved from the city into the suburb and he had to go to a different junior high school and high school, well, the majority of the children at his junior high school and high school were predominantly white. Well, Buddy grew up, going to his preschool. Everybody was African American. His elementary school, African American. And his aunt was the principal. Okay. So, he grew up, and it was a Christian school, and many of the kids that went to his school went to our church. So it was very comfortable, very nurturing.
Mhm.
Everybody kind of knew each other. He knew the
Right.
teachers, because many of the teachers were also members at the church. So, I remember feeling a little uneasy, putting him into a school where he wouldn't know anybody. But, lo and behold, he
Buddy.
thrived and made friends in high school. And then, high school, we had the conversation. But I'll be honest, he never came home and talked about being the brunt of any racism or, people, saying anything bad to him. He found his niche in sports. He played basketball, and he was very well liked on his team. So, I was really happy and pleased that he didn't come home with all of these sad stories or,
Right.
about, blatant racism. But I will say this, couple of things I do remember. I remember when he was in high school, and one of the principals at that time, one of the assistant principals, she was an African American lady, and had gone to parent teachers conference, and the teachers were always very, very pleased with Buddy and his work. And, they were very complimentary and so on and so forth. But I remember one of his principals told me that when he was in the 9th grade, I want to say that one of the teachers came to her. And actually, it wasn't the assistant principal. I take it back. It was another teacher. And she shared this with me at a parent teachers conference, that one of the teachers came to her, a Caucasian teacher, and said, I'm really kind of worried about, Buddy, because, he's coming from an inner city school. And, I'm wondering if he's going to be able, to keep up with the work and so on and so forth. And so the other teacher, who was African American, I remember her saying, she was a little taken aback that she would just assume that because he came from the public school that he wouldn't be able to catch up. And so she said, and this is after Buddy had been there, for several months or whatever. And she said she had to correct the teacher and say, well, I want you to know he is doing extremely well. And as a matter of fact, he's helping some of the other students with their work. And I thought to myself, the nerve to
Right.
assume that. And that's part of the problem that we have even now, is that people assume things about other people without knowing anything about them.
Mhm.
And then the last thing, Nora, that I want to say is something, a conversation we recently had, probably about 4 months ago. Buddy and I decided to go for a jog, and it was so funny. He's not a jogger. I like to run, and so I was thinking to myself, I said, you know what, he hasn't run. I'm going to show him what his mama can do, because I run. Girl, he left me in the dust. Okay. I said, yeah, 50 something, 20 something would always trump 50. So anyway, on our way back, we decided to walk. And so we're walking and just talking. And so we were talking about everything that was going on with George Floyd and all of that. And I was, just kind of trying to get a feel for what Buddy thought about it. And he said to me, and this was very powerful, Nora. He said to me, he said, you know what, Mom? He said, normally, under normal circumstances, a son walking with his mother would be a son walking with his mother would be there to protect his mother if something happened, right? Mm-hmm. And he said, actually, based on where we are, the neighborhood that we live in, he said, me being me, you being with me, Mom, is probably protecting me. Because, but he said, I like to wear hoodies. He said, but I have to be very careful. He said, so when I wear a hoodie, I normally wear the hoodie that has my high school name on it. He said, when I go into a gas station, he said, I make sure that I take the hoodie off, the head part, and I make sure that I'm pleasant and that I speak. He said, because I don't want to give anybody a reason to suspect me as being somebody coming in trying to steal. And I said, how sad is that my son like to wear hoodies, but he has to really think about what area he is going to be in, whether or not that particular clothing item might cause him to be killed. That's really sad. This point.
Yeah, it is. And so, let's talk about and that's that ties right into our next question. Your thoughts on the injustice of Black males in this country and the very fact that he has to be concerned about that when we know that our white parents with white children don't have to be concerned about that. And that's really a sad state of affairs when you think of it. And it takes me back to to biblical times where God, or the Bible, where God says we are made in the likeness and image of God, which is all of us, and I love what Jane Elliott said, is that we're the human race, but we live in a society that doesn't say that. And then we have people with negative political views and so forth, and just what we are listening to as a people. And I mean people, I'm just talking about people in general, right, that defers us to, well, he's Black, he's probably this, or just like that teacher thought, just the negative view. So share with me your thoughts on that.
Well, when I think about race and the race relations that we have right now, I think about the fact that God made all of us.
Yep.
He made Black, he made white, he made yellow, every different culture and color, God created it. And I don't think there's anybody big and bad enough to look at God and say, why didn't you create everybody white? Or why didn't you create everybody Black? Or
right.
This culture is better than that culture. And I think that is really a lack of understanding.
Yeah.
I think that every single culture, has value, right? It has value. And the thing that's really sad is that when you take the stance that you're better because of this, that, and the other, when you take the stance that, another culture isn't as great or isn't as significant as yours, you not only do them an injustice, you do yourselves an injustice. I think we're at a place in society right now where we're very polarized, and everybody is going to their corner and they're standing their ground, as opposed to saying, hey, why can't we come and reason together? Why can't I learn about your culture and you learn about my culture? And it doesn't have to be mine is better than yours. It's not necessarily better. It's just different. And I'll give you a prime example. I was talking to Gloria, Gloria, and that makes the jury. And so,
really?
No, we know two Glorias, okay? So I wanted to we knew which one I was talking about. So anyway, you know that Gloria is Ghanaian, and African culture is different from African American culture. And so she and I were having the conversation on race relations, and she was just saying how, she has experienced racism within whites, and she has experienced some bigotry within Black people. And she said, because as soon as you open your mouth and they tell you have an accent, she said, oh Lord, here we go with the way they perceive you or what they think about you. And as we continue to talk, I said, well, you know what? Gloria, you're so right. I said, because a lot of times when she's sharing with me some of the things that she does, like when she goes home, she has to take gifts for everybody, all of the aunts, all of the kids. I mean, it's so many people that they have to give a gift to for whatever reason. I don't understand it because that's not how we were raised. Not our culture in America. In America, you might give a gift to somebody on their birthday, but you're not obligated to give them and give the whole family. And I said, you know what? Just because I don't understand it, I can't say that's ridiculous. And I'll be honest, there were times I was like, Gloria, for real? I mean, you only make so much money. Why do you feel you have to, I'm trying to talk her out of her culture. And then I had to stop myself and say, stop. That's culture. And guess what? And when when I took the time to understand why they do it, I said, you know what? It says a lot about who they are as a people, that they have more of family view than we do. Everybody is important in their family. So I just use that as an example to say today, nobody wants to take the time to learn about somebody else's background as opposed to just saying, no, we're better. And if you don't like it, we're the majority. So go back to Africa if you don't like, the way you're treated in America. And that right there is totally wrong.
Right. And I think the other sad part is that we tend to use God in the midst of all this racism and say, if you're a godly person or Christian person and you are thinking this way, or let's talk about it, it's voting. If you're voting for so-and-so and not voting for so-and-so, then that I've heard people question your belief in God, which are two separate things, has nothing to do with, I voted for Joe Biden, I'm gonna be real, and that has nothing to do with whether God likes me or not likes me, or whether I'm a good Christian or a bad Christian. It has nothing to do with it. It's just our narrow-minded of thinking in this society. And you're right. It's just that the fact that they're so loving and so giving and so compassionate. And if we just stop for 1 minute and think about who God is, that he's loving, he's compassionate, he's caring, he's giving, he's all the things that you described Gloria to be when she went home to her country. And I just find it really, really sad and disheartening when people are just question who you are as a believer in Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, that is a lot of nerve, but you know what? It shouldn't surprise us if you go and the Bible, the Sadducees and the Pharisees and, those who, thought that, they knew God like nobody else, and nobody doing anything different, they were absolutely wrong. And that's what has been is, so everything that goes around comes back around. Even when Jesus Christ himself came, those that were the religious people and the religious sect, they didn't receive Jesus Christ. And come on, he's the savior of the world. So if they couldn't understand who he was, then of course we know today there are going to be individuals who are going to believe one way, and it's my way or
the highway.
And you know what? I will say this. I have a big enough heart to love you if you're a Republican, and I have enough room in my heart to love you if you are independent. And I personally am a Democrat. And I hope that your heart would be big enough to love me. And one of the things that I will say is this. I think that, there are parties who think that we're just right. We're the right way because we stand on this, we stand on that, we stand on, and you know what? That's great. Everybody should have principles and everybody should have things that they stand on. But you know what? I am big enough to say the Democratic Party has its issues. I don't agree with everything that the Democratic Party does. Come on. We don't agree with everything that our spouses do. We don't agree with everything that our children do. And so I can honestly say these are some things that I don't agree with what the Democratic Party does, but you know what? I still agree enough to remain a Democrat. Republicans, hey, to be able to say there are some things in the Republican Party that I don't agree with, but you know what? Sometimes it is that line in the sand. You can't cross it. And I just wish we could get back to the place where we can agree to disagree. We can talk, we can love each other, but we can agree to disagree. And it sounds kind of funny, but Rodney King, can we all just get along? Because as Christians, that's what we're going to have to be able to do, Nora, because it's not going to be a Democratic place in heaven and a Republican place in heaven. It's not going to be a black heaven and a white heaven. That ain't going to happen. Let's be. So we better really, really try our best to get it together down here, because up there it's just going to be about Jesus Christ, and it's going to be about all of us coming together that chose Jesus Christ as our personal Savior.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So do you feel that it is important to teach our young Black boys what it means to be Black in America?
You know what? Absolutely, undeniably, yes. And you know what? And I'll tell you this. Had you asked me that question 28 years ago when Buddy was born, I probably wouldn't have even thought about that. It probably wouldn't have been a concern. But now looking at the world and where we are right now, absolutely, we have to have that conversation. And I think it is so important, number one, to teach our young men, and starting when they are boys, who they are, the history of who they are, so that they understand that they are as good. They are as good as anybody else. They are smart. They're intelligent. They're brilliant. They need to know their history. They need to know all of the different Black individuals down through history that have done amazing things that, guess what? Quite frankly, they don't teach in elementary school. When you go to elementary school, you'll learn about Thomas Edison. Oh, he created the light bulb, but you won't hear about Frederick Douglass. You won't hear about a lot of the Black powerful inventors and Black men and women that have done things. So it is our responsibility to instill in them the history of who we are and Africa, what it is, the country, that they came from. They need to know about slavery. They need to know about the perceptions that other people, other cultures have about us. And then this is important. They need to understand the power of education. They need to understand that they cannot play into the stereotypical roles that other people think that they're going to be. No, you know what they want. I would tell any young person that don't even give them a reason to look at you a certain way. Don't even give them a reason to say that you're not this, that, and the other. You are just as smart. You are just as intelligent. And guess what? You have a bright future. So I just think it is so important to have those conversations with our young boys when they're growing up. And you know what? And this is the thing, speak it into their life. And I know you are very good at that, but speaking into their life at a very young age, letting them know that they are going to do incredible things with their life, and that, God's hand is upon them, and there's absolutely nothing they can't do that they put their mind to. And with the help of the Lord, they will achieve.
Good. What does Black Lives Matter mean to you, and how do we teach that to our young men? Black males and what it should mean to them. So, as we think about Black Lives Matter, we hear people saying all lives matter. Well, we know all lives matter, but we're not talking about all lives matter. We're talking about Black lives right now, and our young boys, and teaching them the importance of what that means as a Black person.
Well, you know what, you're absolutely right that there are so many individuals that have chosen to take the stance, all lives matter, as if we can't say Black lives matter, and two things can't be true at the same time. Okay. And so as I began to think about that, why are people offended by saying Black lives matter? And then I believe that God gave me this scenario, this example, or this illustration. I said many times we turn on the television and we will see ads and commercials that are asking for the support of endangered species, whether it is elephants that are being killed and poached for their tusks. Right now, they're running ads about the tigers and how, it's so important that the tigers or the lions, that their cubs are being left because their mothers are being the female is being killed. And so they're asking for donations to save these endangered species. And so it's amazing that millions and millions of dollars are raised when you talk about endangered species. I remember at some point the bald eagle, that was, they were going extinct. And then I remember they were talking about the polar bears and so many koala bears. I mean, so many different species of animals. And I said, you know what? Not that animals talk, but think about it. Would the giraffe say, well, why are y'all saying to support the lions? My life matter too. Or the eagle would say not the eagle, another animal would have a problem with people donating to save a different animal that wasn't them. And the answer is they wouldn't. It doesn't. If I chose to support and give money to an endangered species, it's not because I'm saying that the other species aren't important. We want all of the species to live, but I'm giving extra care and concern and money to an animal who, if we don't intervene, they might become extinct. And so I think it's the same way. All lives matter, for sure they do. But when you see a demographic, when you see a group of individuals, a culture, and specifically Black men that are being killed at the hand of police officers, when you see that, you have to stop and say, hey, Black lives matter. We need to put some attention there. We need to see what are some of the things that we can do to stop the onslaught of killing of these Black men. Because guess what? At the end of the day, if there are no Black men, then guess what? The population of children are going to decrease in our culture because, hey, you have a large percentage of Black men being killed. And then I'll say this, because people will always say, okay, well, if Black Lives Matter, you guys are always talking about, what's going on with police officers, and what about within the Black community? And you know what? That is a conversation, and that's a conversation we cannot run away from. That's a conversation that needs to be had. Absolutely. I think getting back to that question, what can you teach your Black boys and what can you teach your young men, is the value of life. The value of life. And that, you know what? I think when you don't value who you are, when you don't think that you are important, it's hard for you to value other people. So it's a lot. And of course, we can't cover it all on this segment of your show. But there's so much when it comes to the Black on Black crime. But, specifically when we talk about Black Lives Matter, I think we can say that and still understand within the context that absolutely all lives matter.
Right. Well, the key point about that is that the circumstances that the world has created with poor Black people in the community, no place to go, boys not having their fathers in the household. And so therefore they get involved in gangs. And their thought is any kind of love is better than no love, even though it may be a negative kind of love, but that's not how they're looking at it. They're looking at the fact that somebody put their life out there on the line for them, and to them, that's loyalty and love. And you're right. We could go on and on about this subject because it is this is a whole different subject of what is going on in our own community and why. There's a reason. Everything that happens, there is a reason for it. So yeah, definitely, for sure. So we hope, or what is your hope for our future generation to understand about their race? We need, what would you say that we need to do more of as a community in the body of Christ, you know, and school and in home and in the community in general?
Well, what I would say is educate, educate, educate,
Okay.
and communicate, communicate, communicate. We have to talk, and we have to reach out beyond our comfort zone, beyond just our family, because you know what? We literally have to be a community that says it takes a village to raise a child. Because we can become, I'm just gonna make sure that, Buddy, goes to school, get his education. I'm gonna make sure that, he has this. But, if I see, another young man that needs some encouragement, or, may need some positive influence in his life, I have to be willing to say it's not about me and mine, because guess what? For every young man that does not get the same thing that, thank the Lord, and by the grace of God, my children have been raised in a household with both parents. Eventually, they are going to affect your household one way or another. And so I believe that, you can only do what you can do, and we have to be a part of the solution and not a part of the problem. And so finding opportunities where you are able to make a difference. There are so many opportunities for us to volunteer, whether it is to go to school and to read, whether it is, programs that, we have at the church that, will go and pick the children up and bring them. And so, one of the things that, Greater Grace Temple, our church, is known for, we are a community church, making sure that, our young people, we have our back to school festival. And so they're able to come, and the boys are able to get free haircuts, because we know that there is, pride in when your first day of school, you're not going, looking all tattered and torn, and, making sure that they can go to school looking good, because we know when a child feels good about the way they look, then that's going to help them in their attitude, programs where they're able to get, a good meal. And so it's so many things that we need in our community, and we may not be able to do every one, but I honestly believe that everybody has a responsibility, and everybody can find something they can do to support and to help develop our young people, especially our Black young boys.
Right. And wouldn't you agree that we cannot look for other people to do it for us? It's something we just absolutely positively must do ourselves. Because there's just something magical, like you said. I don't know if you said it exactly in these words, but looking on TV and seeing somebody that looks like me. You know what I'm saying? And so just having those people, and that's one of the things that I love about Greater Grace, that I love about my brother, Bishop Charles Ellis, is he has a heart for the people in the community, and definitely the change, and want to see a change come to the community. And because of that, because of the leader that he is, it helps to exemplify that with Greater Grace, and that they're in the community making sure that because like you said, it takes a village to raise a child, not just one person, because if the father's not there, the mother's doing it all herself.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I just think, this is an important conversation that we have to have, and I'm glad that you and I are having it on today. And I hope that others that will view this will get something from it, and decide to either keep doing what they're doing, as they are helping young people in their community, and if not, we all can step up to the plate and do more.
Right. And start something. You can start something,
Absolutely.
So, Chris, I want to thank you for being my guest. This was so much fun and exciting. I get to see your beautiful face with Real Conversations with Nora. Are there any last minute comments that you'd like to share with the audience? What are you doing, now that you're, other than the fact that we talk about clothes together and shopping together? I think you and I are the two that stay online, but what are you doing, now with this pandemic and not being able to go out?
Well, you know what? My dad lives with me. He just had a birthday. He just turned 93 years old.
It looks fabulous, guys. He looks fabulous.
Yeah, he looks good and he's healthy. So, just making sure, that his environment is protected, and doing a whole lot more on Zoom and things with the church and things with my business, and, really fine tuning some things, getting an opportunity to read some more, and, looking and saying, what areas in my life can I improve in? And so just trying to use this time wisely, because at some point it is absolutely going to end, but also understanding that even after it ends, things are not going to go back to the status quo. Things are going to absolutely change.
Good. Well, once again, I want to thank you, Crisette, for your insight on today's topic. It was very, very enlightening. And to my Real Conversation with Nora audience, please follow us on social media, Instagram at BWOTMFG, and on Facebook at Business Women on the Move for God. Visit our website at bwotmfg.com and sign up for our weekly inspirational quotes. Make sure you stop by our retail store, where you will find lots of great items, not only for you, but your family and friends. And God bless you. Have a wonderful week. We look forward to joining you next week, next Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Real Conversations with Nora. God bless you and have a wonderful week.